I think I speak for most people in starting off by just saying that to hear at this point the voice of Jean-Louis Trintignant is a wonderful epitaph to a poetic career. So I feel like he's smiling on us right now.
Yeah, that's his last work.
Yeah.
And there's something really, obviously you know Jean-Louis Trintignant, and there's something really strange now. I'm promoting the movie all over France right now because it's opening and it will open the 20th of November. And when his voice arrives in the movie, it's really like a ghost entering the room. And the movie is about a ghost. The father is a ghost. So it's really strange. The last words of Jean-Louis Trintignant have a very special echo to the story.
Yeah. Well, thank you and I think everyone is grateful for that. I want to talk a moment about Jean-Claude Grumberg, who a lot of people may know, frequent collaborator of Costa Gavras, and last Metro for François Truffaut. You're stepping into some very prestigious shoes by working with him. Could you talk, and I know this is a question you've answered probably 1,000 times, but how did this book come across your radar, and what made you think, I think I'll do it as an animated film?
I've been sent that book, and actually Jean-Claude Grumberg is my parents' best friend since they are 15. And they are 85, 86, and 87 now. So I always known Jean-Claude Grumberg. And when he wrote that book, he sent it to another director named Robert Guédiguian, because they had worked together, and he wanted to know if there was a movie to do. And in his mind, it was an animation movie. And Robert read the book in 1 hour. It's a very small book, and he said, "It's wonderful. I can't do it, but I will bring it to my partner, Patrick Sobelman." And Patrick said, "Okay, I want to produce that movie." And Jean-Claude said, "You should reach for a director who draws." And he knew that I was drawing, so he told Patrick to call me and to send me the book. So I read the book, and I thought that story was really, really powerful, really moving and very deep, and pretending it's a very simple story. So I loved it, and I said, yes, I'll do it, not knowing that it will take 6 years to do.
It's interesting knowing Grumberg's work, because I did the audio commentary with Costa for Amen. And I remember him speaking at the time very much about how Grumberg is sort of the conscience of this history, a caretaker of this history. And if we look at The Last Metro and Amen and now this film, they almost seem to form a trilogy over the course of his career, as though the three of you, Truffaut and Costa and you, have now helped him tell a much longer chronicle of this. Has that occurred to you?
Yeah, but he's known as a stage writer. He wrote some very famous stage play, like L'Atelier, for example, and movies is a side job for him, I would say. And for him, that was not a movie. It was a book written as a tale, a very small book. And he trusted me for the adaptation. We talked a lot, but I think he never considered that as a movie, really. And it became a movie. But, I mean, being in a band with Costa and Truffaut, yes, I buy it.
Yeah, this feels to me also like a deeply personal film. I mean, you come from a Jewish family with Eastern European roots, and that's not something that has really shown up in your work before. So, at least quite so obviously, to what
If you watch OSS 117,
yeah, true, yeah, but we laugh a lot in those movies. We don't laugh a lot in this one. How deeply personal was this with respect to your own family history?
Well, it's a very complex question because I really feel that all my movies are very, very personal. Even the last time I came here, it was 2 years ago for a movie called Final Cut. It was a remake of a Japanese movie, and strangely enough, it was a very personal movie. And I'm not Japanese, but each time you make a movie, it is personal. And this one, there's a lot of intimity. There's a lot of, my family story, but I don't know if it's more personal than the other. I mean, the artist was deeply personal. OSS 117 is very personal as well. I wouldn't put a hierarchy in this. But you're right. I mean, there was a responsibility different for this one because of the topic and because of all the question linked to the representation of the deportation and the massive genocide of Jews. It was more complex to do, or more delicate to do.
So that brings me to my next question, which is that every time a filmmaker tackles a subject matter, they carry the burden of knowing all the great films that they'll be compared to. Everything from Schindler's List to Sophie's Choice and on and on and on and on. And that's both a burden and a responsibility, it seems, that you think, well, how am I going to fall into that pantheon? There are a lot of prestigious films. Did that weigh on you? Did you think, I'm going to be compared? Or did you just put that in the back of your head and just tell the story the way it needed to be told?
No, you can't. I mean, if you start to think like that, you don't do anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many great directors in the history of cinema. I mean, you have to, not to kill them because I'm a nice guy, but you have to forget them. Yeah. And anyway, I mean, you have to start from the story, and the story will tell you what you have to do. My job is to find what are the rules of the game for this one, for this story. This movie will be done from that story, and I have to find out how to make it. And the answer is not in other movies with other stories.
I want to talk a bit about the technique in the film, because it is entirely unlike any other animated film I think we have seen in a very, very long time. And there are a lot of things that really, really set it apart. And one of them, I know with the artist, you didn't write the artist as more or less a conventional screenplay. You wrote it visually. And did you do the same thing here? Was this constructed at the script phase more as a storyboard exercise like they typically do with animated films, or was it some kind of a combination? How did you sort of go about structuring and conceiving this?
I wanted to have some... if you look at the characters, once again, the answer are in the story. If you look at the characters, the woodcutters, the baby, the father, the guy who lives by himself in the forest, none of them are people who talk too much. So I had to do it not silent, but with not too much dialogues. So that means to make a visual movie more than a talking movie. And also because I believe that when you want to put some deep emotion, silent is always better, in my opinion. And so yeah, that's for the visual part. And the way I did it, I did the first storyboard, and then I shot the movie with some actors in 2 weeks, and I shot all the movie and I edited it, because to me, writing a movie is not writing a script. That means writing a script, shooting, and editing. And the editing is very, very important for me. So that's why I shot this. But this movie is absolutely ridiculous, because I shot in a wood just close to Paris. So I had my woodcutter, but behind them I have some joggers running, watching at the camera and say, you're shooting a movie? But this film exists. And strangely enough, when I screened it, before it became an animated movie, it was very moving. People they were crying when I screened that movie, and from that we did the storyboard, the animatic, and the animation after that. But that means that there's a lot of things that are not usually done in animation movie. For example, the close-up, you don't have that kind of close-up usually. Or the last shot, for example, the very long shot in the station, it looks nothing for people who do live-action movie, because it's like, okay, a wide shot with the extras. But for animation, you have 80 characters. It was a nightmare. I mean, they hated me for that shot. So,
with that additional footage, will we see that on the Blu-ray or the extras? Yeah.
The producer, Patrick Sobelman, he wants to screen it in the in the school of cinema, in cinema school. Yeah, he said it's an example of no, but it's strange, because it's ridiculous, but it works. It's really a matter of convention between the movie and the audience, and once the audience accept that it's done with let's say, I don't know, 100 euros, you accept everything. And but to put it on Blu-ray, I'm not sure, because it's done with no, I mean I could, but we have some problem with the music, with the rights, because it's done with other music. But maybe we'll try something.
Swap the music out. Use some other music, because I think people want to see it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because
next year I'll come and I will show you. Okay. Don't push me. I can do it.
Let's do it. Because I think a lot of us watch this and we feel like you're doing silent cinema again. You're going back to those tools that so many filmmakers have forgotten, how to tell stories without having people constantly talking and without constantly feeding us everything on a cookie. But at the same time, I'm struck by the sound design. The sound design here is extraordinary. And the train, it's not just the visual of the train, it's the sound of the train. It's haunting. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about developing the sound design to match the visuals, and especially when you see it in a room like this. It's really, really extraordinary.
Yeah, sound is it's very strange, because when you work on an animation movie for maybe 2 years or 2 years and a half, there's no shooting really, so you don't have real sound. So you take some little sound from internet, but it's very cheap, and suddenly comes the man, the sound designer. In this case, his name is Selim Azazi. He's very good. I made a few movies with him, and and we had some. The train was the villain of the movie. The first time I screened the little movie we just talked about to the crew, animators, the guy who was in charge of the train, he said, "Wow, so I'm the main character." And it was very. I wanted this very simple and hypnotic sound for the sequence with no other sound in the train, but outside I wanted something way more complex, with sounds of animals, with sounds of industry, a lot of things. And we spend a lot of time on this, but also on the sound of the nature, the sound of the snow, the wind in the leaves of the trees. And what happens in the animation, there's nothing alive in the image. In the image, everything is created from scratch. All the life, the real life, comes by the sound. The sound of the wind is the real wind. The sound of the baby is the real baby. And so suddenly when the sound designer comes into the process, he really brings the life in and your movie is really, really different. And for example, the baby, he has a son who's 16 now, but when he was a baby, he recorded all the sound of the baby. Sound designer. So that's why his son is thanked in the credits because it's his sound.
And how old is his son now?
16.
So we're hearing the sound of his son 16 years ago.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It really well recorded from 16 years ago. Wow, that's extraordinary. Let's talk about.
So I have to say something else. Alexandre Desplat composed the music. Yeah. And he did a wonderful score. And it's the same process. For 2 years, I worked with temp tracks. And so there was like Mahler, Barber, Giacchino, Bernard Herrmann, Avro Prat. All these great composers. And suddenly, Alexandre comes and you forget everything. He reinvents all the music of the movie. But what happened is I was so impressed by Alexandre's music that I put it a little bit too in the front. And when what? Yeah, no, let me finish. That's the first sound mixing that I did and when I went to Cannes. But then I realized that the sound design was excellent as well. So I just put the music a little bit back in the background to rediscover the sound design. And I think that now we have the right balance between the two.
Was the picture locked at the time that he scored it, or did you change it any to respond to the score afterwards?
No, I didn't change in one single frame.
Okay. So but he didn't follow the temp tracks. He came and did his own thing. And
well, we spotted the spotting. Following what I did before, and I think it maybe moved a little bit something, but not that much. Not that much.
Amazing. I am also struck by the performances of the faces, and I think we've all sort of become accustomed to a kind of a palette of animated character reactions. Disney characters have maybe 10 different reactions. and anime characters have maybe 7 or 8. And we're accustomed to not a lot of deviation there. And there are times in watching this film where you forget that the characters are drawn, where you feel as if this is an actor, this is a flesh and blood actor giving you a really, really textured set of expressions that sort of evoke half a dozen emotions in a single moment. That's not an easy thing to do. I'd love to know how you approach the drawing of the faces and having to match emotions that you've already recorded with the actors in those faces. It seems an incredibly daunting task.
The shooting we did before was more for the editing, not for. I mean, we could follow the intention of the actors, but there was no rotoscopy. There was all that kind of stuff. So I draw the characters, and at first I wanted to do it like other live action directors do usually. I wanted to hire a co-director, but it didn't work. So finally I did it by myself, and so I directed the animation. And it was not that easy, and also because you're right, I mean, they are used. I mean, every animator has his own style, but I had just one character, and so I had to put everything on the same line. And usually, they force everything. For example, they don't do that; they do that always. So I have to. The main thing was to say less is more, less is more, less is more always, and I always do. Even in the live action movie, I try to give space to the audience, and I think if you don't do too much, the audience will fill the empty field, and the movie will be closer to each each person in the audience. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And I think it extends to the body language, too. I mean, the characters have a naturalistic body language that we relate to in ways that we don't normally get out of animated films.
Yeah, and it's not easy because when you start with that kind of drawings, it's very difficult to put words on drawings, but let's say semi-realistic or realistic, I don't know, but you have to be very, very accurate with anatomy and perspective. And it's very difficult now to I mean, all the animators are not that confident with that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we made a lot of retakes and retakes and retakes.
It worked.
When I say they hated me, I'm serious. I mean it.
Well, hopefully the actors didn't hate you because you got some wonderful voice performances out of them. I'd like to know, did you do it the traditional way, bring the actors in first, individually record them take after take in a studio, or did you do something different? Because it feels as if there was, the way they interact, it felt almost as if it were on a set, that you have them interacting with each other. I'd love to know how you approached that.
No, they were not, but the dialogues are written in a very, let's say, literal or classical style. It's not like usual common dialogue. So I wanted to hire some stage actors, people who can make this brings very natural, and also with not especially modern way to speak. They have a classical diction, and the way we did it, we first recorded before the animation, just to have a reference, and then we did all the animation. I mean, this is the I took these voices to put on the storyboard, animatic and animation, and then we re-recorded everything once they have the bodies of the characters, the movements and everything.
Well, that's a little. I mean, that is a bit unorthodox. That's not normally how other animated films work. So
that's the great advantage when it's your first movie. You don't know how you usually do, so you do the way you want it. And
keep doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, every movie is a first movie, so. But this one particularly, and some people of the crew, they told me that was an advantage, really. They said usually when an animation director works, he knows technically how to do things, and he knows, because of the technique, how not to do things. And because I didn't know, we did some things that we should not have do, but we did it. So.
The recreation of light and shadow is also really striking, and I'm thinking especially the moment, the sequence where the train arrives at Auschwitz. You have so much shadow inside the boxcar, light, bright light. It's almost black and white outside through the slit. When they arrive, the way that light and shadow interact on the train outside, it's as though you're recreating a style of cinematography. Again, not what we typically see in animated films. Very, very bold on your part. How hard was that to do, and did that also make the animators hate you?
Yeah, no, that was very difficult, because this one, you have some very performant tools that can help you. For example, for the snow, it's almost like a VFX. It's not like drawing every flakes, snowflakes, but this one, it was really drawing all the shadows for the sequence you were talking about. And this one was, for example, the opening sequence when she finds the baby in the snow, for me it was a white on white sequence. So I wanted almost everything white, and this little character running in the snow. And this one was black on black. So we had to draw all the shadows of the characters, and it was very, very, very long. It's a very long process. If you have the choice, don't make animation.
What other challenges, other than what we've talked about, did you encounter that you didn't expect to encounter? I'm just, you always walk into a film thinking, and I always think of, there's a great quote by Ethan Coen of the Coen brothers where he says that at a certain point it stops being the movie you wrote and it just becomes the movie that it is. And I've never met a filmmaker who didn't absolutely just nod their heads at that. What surprises were there in the process, both positive and negative, that you had not foreseen?
Well, the positive is that I discovered that the animation frees you in a way. I mean, it's freeing in a way, because it's not realistic, because you're not stuck in the reality. So you have like a field of narration which is a little bit larger. So for this topic, it was the perfect tool, because in that field you could evocate, suggest, and not showing, which is all the difficulty of the representation of the camps and the deportation. So just working with, for example, in the train, it's just faces, but there's no explicit images in the movie, and so that was the positive thing that I discovered with animation. The negative is that it's very difficult to ask some people to draw something. Can you imagine, like, I don't compare myself to Michelangelo, but can you imagine Michelangelo saying, no, can you do a little bit more like this and like this and like this? It's very, very difficult. It's very frustrating. So I draw, I made a lot of drawings, but you have many, many, many animators, many, many drawers, and you're always behind them, and it's frustrating.
Did you change the story as you had conceived it or scripted it, or change anything? I mean, I know the book is different in many respects from the book. There are certain sequences that I think are chronologically different. But was there anything during the process where you altered it?
No. Once we started to produce the movie for real. No, we could not change it because it's too expensive to change. So the main changes from the book are made during the adaptation, during the script writing.
So to kind of start to wrap up, I think everyone would love to know what's next, because your career trajectory has been so, like, you clearly
erratic.
Well, you missed the memo. You were supposed to have made a superhero film and a Brad Pitt film and a whole lot of other things by now. That's what you're supposed to do after you win Best Picture. So you're always surprising us, which I think is wonderful. I mean, it is a wonderful thing when a filmmaker leaves us in suspense as to what they're going to do next. And so, is there something else percolating?
Yes. No, the next thing is a book. So it's different. What can I say? It's a book. It's a book about Ukrainian defenders. When war started in Ukraine, I organized an auction, and I asked to many, many people from the industry to send me something to sell. And for example, Tom Hanks sent me a typewriting, and that I bought actually, and many, many people sent me things, and we collected 250,000 euros that I sent to a platform of fundraising created by President Zelensky. So they named me ambassador of that platform, and then thank you. So I went to Kiev, to Ukraine, quite a few, like 5 times or something like that, and one of the last time I went there, I met a soldier who told me, you should come to the front line to meet the defenders. So I said okay, and I went there, and the book is a gallery of portraits, sketches, and text of these amazing people, heroic people. I mean, I've deeply admired them, all of them.
Wonderful. Well, so you're not going to tell us what the next movie is?
Oh, the next movie, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
I hope it will be something simple.
Michel Hazanavicius.
Thank you very much. Thank you.